Halftime's over, but that means we've got another 2 quarters to come. If you've taken a sandwich break, it's time to kick off the second half.
You know, you stop to think about that coaching. I mean, as good as the players were on that 92 championship team, but that coaching staff, especially what do we have, about a month between the Auburn game and the game against Miami. You give that staff a month, and they were going to put together a winning game plan. I don't think there was any question.
Unbelievable job. And I think these guys, the 92 guys, we may have been the last Bear Bryant guys that really understood what it was kind of like to grow up and see a national championship. I was 5 and 6, and we talked about it all the time. When we actually broke down from summer practice on, national champions. And that was our goal, was to bring it back to Alabama. But I think these defensive guys need to talk, because offensively, we did a lot of great things. We played in the hands. We probably had what I thought was the best, would become the best college offensive player in the nation, 93, should have won the Heisman Trophy, and David Palmer. But these guys, the bookends and Langham and Teague and the plays they made, just unbelievable. For a quarterback, it makes your job really easy.
There were some
those guys like that.
Championship game, weren't there?
There were a lot of nice plays in there.
You know, I had just moved back to Alabama just before that, and I think that's probably the best defense I've ever seen in college football.
Yeah.
I mean, I had been in Miami, y'all. In Miami, you know, being down there and knowing how those guys were, they used to come watch us practice and stuff. And, you know, those Miami guys were wanting us as Dolphins. It was almost like it was reversed. We were supposed to be saying yes, sir, to no, sir, to those guys. They were so cocky. And watching that 92 defense line up, all 11 guys up on that line and say, hey, bring it on. Let me see what you got. I mean, as a former Alabama football player, I was so proud to watch that game. And then you guys rolled up those yards, and then Martin Houston was just making those All-American linebackers look like a bunch of you know, kids. It was really fun to watch.
I was in Miami when you guys played that game, and buddy, I tell you, they thought I was having a fit in my house. They thought I was going crazy. Every time you guys would score, and I would just yell outside, and yes.
At my family reunion, we had a family reunion that December the 26th. And everybody asked me, what's going to happen between Alabama and Miami? And I make the bold, I said, Alabama by 3 touchdowns. I want some of that. I want some of that. I want some of that. I was a rich man on January 3rd.
We had never seen, even offensively, we didn't know they were going to line up 11. Y'all had been doing all that stuff kind of in secret behind the scenes. We hadn't seen it in practice. And all of a sudden, we're like, wow. I mean, we're as amazed at it as well.
Actually,
but everybody
as a
asked me all
lineman,
year.
I didn't even know it was lined up 11 until I watched it on TV. You know, I came back and watched the game.
Actually, excuse me, what are you doing over here? Actually, the Miami lost the game before the game even started.
Sure did.
Because when of course, they were talking trash on the court right there in Louisiana, right? In Bourbon Street. And I knew something was like stirring up in the locker room when Stallings usually would bring us up and we would pray, you know, going on out there. But this time, Stallings stood up in the middle of the locker room, kind of looked around. Nobody said, it was quiet, just like this here. And he said, all right, guys. And everybody kind of like 2 or 3 people walked out here, you know, 3 or 4 people walked out here. Kind of came out of the locker room. I'm getting kind of choked up. But by that time, it was on there.
It was serious business. For us, it was serious business. For Miami, they was showboating. They was being a showman. For us, it was serious business. You know what I'm saying? We had a job to do, and we was intending to do that job. And I think that showed on the field once we went out there. Once we got to playing with them cats from Miami, we knew they wasn't the same. They didn't have the same character we had. You know what I mean? They couldn't play with us.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is, like, we talk about the history and where, you know, you heard about Coach Bryant and all these but you guys made us real proud. Let me tell you this. After 10 years with the Colts, 6 different head coaches and turmoil and everything else, just my relationship and what we were able to achieve at Alabama got me through those losing seasons, you know. And so then in '92, I'm sitting there in front of the TV, and my wife is from Indiana. She doesn't understand anything about what I'm going through, and I'm screaming and yelling. Oh man! And then Teague does his thing, man. I'm like tripping out, screaming. And one of the things that really ticked me off is Lee Corso picked Miami 21-0 over Alabama. That ticked me off, and I'm like, I'm gonna we're going to beat their butts. And when you guys did that, man, we were right with you, man. It was just, that's that relationship, and what a great feeling, man.
You could feel that on TV.
Proud, man.
Well,
it was
course,
good.
So that year was every week, you know, Bama's the worst 0-9 team, 9-0 team in America. Next week, they're the worst 10-0 team in America. You know, and they're the worst 12-0 team in America. I mean, this keeps going. He had no respect.
Coming back from Miami, I saw a sign, and like when I first got in the state of Alabama, there was a sign that said 13-0, and it still ain't played nobody.
We get there, a reporter says, Jay, this is like David and Goliath. I said, well, I'll take those odds. I don't think you ever read the word, I guess, because David won that battle. And, but it was all, I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I remember waking up the next morning and the paper sitting out there, 13-0 national champ. I woke up going, okay, I'm sore. I didn't dream this because I knew I couldn't go through it again if we had to play it. It was just unbelievable. But you talked about the tradition. Y'all set the standard, and we wanted to live up to the standard. And,
especially defensive-wise.
Yeah.
When you guys had that goal line stance, I mean, we go out on the field defensively. We practice hard every day. It wasn't like, 11 guys, we get into the ball. And that's how it was. So I'll take one game, we played Mississippi State, and we was talking about it coming down. I think that game defensively, as a unit, we grew that night because them boys were driving the ball down the field on us. Mississippi State had those big linemen. They had number 37, name is Davis. He was running the ball downhill. He was coming. It was cold that night, ESPN. And then finally, Big Cope said something in the huddle, got everybody rattled up, ready to go. Eric looked like he wants to start crying. He get geared up, ready to go. And big fellas, they start playing, and it made our job easier. We just go to the ball and make plays.
The kids nowadays, maybe, Jeremiah, it's not fair since you played here and Tim knows the history, but do kids today, these young guys coming to school, really know the history of the university, you think? I don't know. Lamont, you think they know it?
I don't think so. I think they got more things to occupy them with the computer games and computers. A lot of kids get cars now at a lot younger ages, so I think they got a lot of things to keep them occupied.
How about Tim? Does he know it because of you?
I would say the only way that a young man will know is he has to have somebody in his family, a relative, or is around the university where he's hearing the history of the university. If he doesn't, then he doesn't understand. My son knows because I just share a lot of stories. He knows a lot of these guys in this room, even though he's never met them, and that's, to me, what was special about. I just look back at being at the university, and I was sharing this earlier with someone. I said, hey, if I accomplished anything, it's because the coaches molded and shaped me, and I think that's what you hear these guys saying, and they molded and shaped me into the player that was. For me, it was my first year, Coach Oliver, and then being behind Don, I just sat there and watched Don and knew what was, it was what I was taught of what was expected of me. When I walked on that field, I knew what was expected. And so the standard was high, and you went out and you want to live up to that standard.
John, how about you guys could field your own Alabama team, basically out of the Hanna family. Does everybody respect, and did they all respect the history and know the history?
Oh yeah, I heard people say they got recruited. My recruitment was Dad says, do you want to eat here or not? And so my choice was, do I eat at home or do I come to Alabama? And so I pretty much came to Alabama. But what I'd like to, I remember two things that Coach Bryant taught. The first was class and pride. And I think class is something that you can't take away from any Alabama player. And I'm kind of a smart alecky and big mouth sometimes. And so, but when I remember, you guys, I'm proud of Alabama. When I went to New England to play with the Patriots, I remember being interviewed the first time I was up there, and they said, well, what's it going to feel like playing in front of 55,000 people on national TV? And I told them I wouldn't be too disappointed. Because Alabama football is, we were playing in front of 80,000, 90,000 people then. And, it was a step down as far as the
the trappings of the day.
The trappings of the, pro football was a step down instead of a step up. And I was really disappointed in that because they didn't have the pride and the class that Coach Bryant had brought to the University of Alabama. Now, as far as me concerned in my career, I was telling Dwight, I much preferred pro football because Coach Bryant didn't think much offense. His belief in football was if they can't score, the worst we can do is tie. And, and he didn't really go much with offense. So I learned a lot more and enjoyed my pro career a lot more than I did college because we highlighted offense and, had a very attacking type of an offense. So I liked that a lot better. But the things that I got out of Alabama was work ethics and class and just the pride of being who you are and finishing that game. And I think Dwight will agree with that. It's a step down when you get in the pros, really, from Alabama.
Offense, like you said, we ran the football here. I mean, I learned, like you said, the things about hard work, and, technique and that sort of thing was something that, Coach Rutledge was one of my coaches here, and then Coach Steve Powell. And Sylvester Kroon was my coach when I owned a JV team. But I've always had good people around me and stuff. I had great coaches, great players. And so I've been fortunate in that regard. Coming here to the University of Alabama, again, it gave me a good base. It taught me about keeping your feet moving, good techniques to help me later on in my pro career. But college, like I said, here we ran the football. We did not throw the football a whole lot. But we ran the football, and we ran it real well, I think. Major Ogilvie, Tony Nathan, we had some good running backs. We had a good offensive line, and some guys like Jim Bunch, Vince Booth, Buddy Adelette, and Mike Brock. We had a good offensive line, and Jim Bunch was All-American. So, we learned about hard work and that sort of thing. And like John mentioned, the thing about showing class, Coach Bryant, he talked to us about showing your class and stuff, what you're going to do when you get out on the field. Let's say if this situation happens, how are you going to handle it? Saying, hey, if you lose the game, how are you going to handle the game? And you may not win. You always have to have a plan and show your class and that sort of thing. So for me, it was a great time, and, to come to the University of Alabama, coming from Hampton, Virginia, coming down here. And then I left here and went and played down for the Dolphins, playing for Coach Shula down there. It was like an extension, leaving here and going down to Miami and stuff. Coach Bryant and Coach Shula, very organized people and very much winners. So it was good. But like I said, Coach Shula, it was not a whole lot of offense. And then when we went down to Miami, the Dolphins, offense was what we were all about down there. And that was throwing the football and putting a lot of points on the board and being very creative and doing a lot of things there. So.
Major was almost unfair running behind that bunch, so wasn't it?
It was nice.
I bet.
Let me tell you, because they left in 1 year, all 5 of them left. Yeah. Actually, all 6 of them. But no, it really was. And that Dwight's senior year, keep in mind, one of the real advantages we had too was the number of players that we had. Dwight, I believe I'm right in saying that the second and third team offenses played more than the first. In the '79 year, the first 6 games, the second and third teams played more than the so-called first team. We had a lot of depth, just a lot of good players that our coaches helped us develop.
It's interesting you guys were talking about a step down to some regards in the NFL, and these guys here started nodding the same way, David and John. I didn't realize that. And it obviously doesn't matter what generation or what age. You guys feeling the same thing, huh?
Definitely, especially me coming from the University of Alabama and going to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Good point.
So it was really tough for me. It was a tough adjustment.
Good sections were available at game time. Yeah.
We were 2-14 my first year in New England, so it's a big adjustment to come from. Every week when you put on that crimson jersey, you knew when you go out. You're thinking win the game, and nothing else. You knew you were going to be in the game winning. And, we never even thought about losing the game. And you get up in New England and you're 2-10 going into week 13, and it's about 20 degrees out there. it was a lot of adjusting to do.
We played in a playoff game in 1978, and they couldn't sell out the stadium in New England. And
of course, Schaefer Stadium in those days was kind of like an outdoor toilet. It was not a nice place.
You're being kind. In fact, when I first got up there, they had outdoor privies because the plumbing went out, and we couldn't. So every time we'd go out, I made more money my first year because they'd throw, when we get close to the end zone, whether the defense had us back out or we were coming out, they'd throw quarters at us. So we were supposed, as rookies, you pay for camaraderie, right? So camaraderie is when everybody gets together on Mondays, and so I went out every Monday morning. I'd always get the training room early, and I'd go out and collect the quarters, and that's how I paid for camaraderie. So I kind of liked it when we were close to the end zone.
What are you going to say, Major?
I was going to talk about the tradition that goes with playing at the University of Alabama, and I don't think anybody in this state allows us to forget that. And it doesn't matter if it's this year, or if it was 25 or 30 years ago, and going back to Coach Thomas and Coach Wade, I mean, Coach Bryant used to talk about that, and I believe that's one of the things that really separates the experience and for us as far as players playing in Alabama is that tradition, and we talk about the crimson jersey, and that's something that makes an impression on all of us. Always has.
When guys from other schools talk about it too, those guys around the league and around the country that played against Alabama, and especially if they had a chance to come to Bryant-Denny or to Legion Field, those guys know those people in Alabama are crazy about Alabama football, and they respect that, and they know it's never a cakewalk, never, regardless of what the situation. They know it's not going to be a cakewalk.
We played Kentucky up there in 1988, and they were beating us pretty good. And we got in the huddle as a defense, and I'll never forget it. They broke the huddle, and Derek Thomas looked across at him. He said, "Do you know who you playing? You playing the University of Alabama. You are not going to win." And we were down by 17 points in the fourth quarter. And we told them that. We talked about that throughout the rest of the game. We told them they are not going to win because they play in the University of Alabama. And about last year, a guy from Kentucky that played that day came to our offices for a deposition. And he says, "You play football at Alabama?" He said, "Were you playing in 1988? I said, "Yes, I sure was." He said, "Do you remember how y'all told us we wasn't going to win the game?" So, this is a very special place. Coach Perkins told us that from the very first day, this is a special place. Coach Kroom told us, when you play defense for the university, you are the heart and pride of this university. You go out there and you represent us and you show your class. I was coming to Alabama from the time I was 6 years old. I watched the Sugar Bowl, December 31st, 1973, and cried when they threw that long pass at the end and got that long third down. And I told my mother that night that I was coming to Alabama and I was going to play for the Bear. Missed it by a couple of years.
And just the crimson jersey, the tradition, and I'm sure every guy in this room would say this, that I could never give back to Alabama what it's given me. Could never.
You just keep trying. Though.
Yeah, you keep trying. But the thing about it, and I say this, if there's a kid that's watching this one day and they look at this and they see everything that this university has meant to us, because I promise you there's guys at opposing schools, our biggest rival in the state, that look at me and say, "What was it like to play in Alabama? What was it like to wear that crimson jersey?" Because it was special. Yes. And I promise you, I don't know if I'd have enough money to pay to be back and have those experiences again. The friendships, the relationships, and just the idea of being a part of something that's this special. I mean, kids these days, they can go, search out Oregon and these other places out of state by the internet. When I was growing up, all I had was Alabama. That's all I had, and that's all I knew about.
And you think about when you're going through life and you make decisions in life and you don't know how they're going to impact you sometimes, but, there's no question the single most greatest decision I ever made was coming to the University of Alabama. I mean, I could have gone to any other, but something drew me here. It was just something, an aura, and it's just, I remember I had taken all trips to Florida, FSU, all the schools, Georgia. I went to Auburn and did all that kind of thing. But when I finally got the trip to Alabama and I looked at Woodrow Lowe's helmet in his locker, it's over. I want to be here. And Woodrow was one of my heroes, man. You talk about a hard-hitting football player. But I mean, I just fell in love. And I immediately went back to one of my best friends back in Pompano, and he goes, Barry, what's going on? I said, man, I'm going to Alabama. I'm going to Alabama. And he go, why? They don't need any linebackers. And I said, I don't care. I said, man, I'm going to have a chance. And he said, well, you know, he said, I'd rather play at Bucknell, because that's where he was going, than sit the bench at Alabama. And I looked at him and I said, I'd rather sit the bench at Alabama than play at Bucknell, I'll tell you that. And, you know, I just wanted the opportunity to play. You know?
You're talking about tradition. I'll never forget it. I'm in the meeting room one day, and I'm talking to Coach Oliver, and he just, out of the blue, he just asked me, he said, Antonio, do you want to be a great? I'm looking at him like, yeah. He said, okay. He said, go down to my office. I got a VHS tape and a VCR. He said, push it in and just watch it. I'm watching this tape. I'm watching Jeremiah. I'm watching Don. I'm watching Tommy. I'm watching all these guys. I sit there, I watch the whole tape, and I'm talking about it. He said, that's tradition. That's what you call want to be great. So after I watch the tape, I come back to him. I look at him. I said, Coach, I got a long way to go, don't I? He looked me in my eye, and he told me, he said, you have it, follow lead. That's exactly what he said to me. And ever since that day, and I'm saying, I mean tradition and want to be great around here. And I think that they should go back, and the kids that are coming in now, I think they should go back and make them watch highlight tapes of everybody in this room and realize that this is what tradition is. This is how you play football at the University of Alabama.
You know, wouldn't it be, you mentioned the name real quickly. We've not talked about him at all. Can you imagine if DT was sitting right there? I mean, God rest his soul. You talk about a football player.
With the little skinny kid coming out of Thomasville, Georgia, I had to deal with the Georgia Bulldogs. And my hero was like Herschel Walker. And so my whole thing was, how can I get out of Thomasville without going to Florida State, going to Georgia, or going to Auburn? Because every time that guy from Auburn came out there, the head coach, what was his name? He come up there with that cigar, like, oh, I just hate that guy. I mean, really, I didn't know nothing about Auburn and Alabama. He was like, God, he's smoking. Like, man, I can't stand the way he just looks at me or whatever, because he always came up there to recruit me, right? And then Coach knew. He had stacks and stacks and stacks of Alabama paraphernalia. I was coming up there, and I was like, man, Alabama must really like me. So when it came around for me to take my recruiting trips, I came up, and Steve Webb was my recruiting guy. And, I thought about it. I was like, man, I got away from Georgia. I got away from Florida State. And then when I seen Derek Thomas come around that corner, and Cornelius hit that quarterback, I don't know if it was Notre Dame.
Steve Berline.
I was like, whoa, I got to get here, man. I got to get here, man. I got to feel some of this fever.
Of all the hits you've ever laid on anybody, was that the single, even in your pro career, was that the single purest drilling of a human being you ever did?
Yes, I think so. Yeah. And I mean, it's the hit that I'm most reminded of, by fans.
Play action and boom, down he goes. Cornelius Bennett, loose ball, no, the trip caused the fumble. Oh my goodness, did Cornelius Bennett bury him at the 25-yard line? Berline never saw Cornelius Bennett. He was coming from the blind side. Bennett absolutely unloaded on him.
And you have to see the picture, every day at home. But it was, we were talking about Derek. I missed my senior year. I missed the first 2 games at the start of the season with a hamstring injury. And out of the blue, this Derek Thomas guy, he shows up, and you could see that greatness, man. But you knew it was there with Derek. But Derek was lazy when he first got here. Had Sylvester Croom as a coach. Derek would sit in the meetings, he'd fall asleep. Coach Croom would make him stand up and do everything. But you saw that athletic ability. And just to sit here, and I thought about it the first time we sat down. I just thought about DT. I was like, boy, we missing a guy. First of all, he would have been late for the shoot. He would have been late.
Nobody else had been to get a word in.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, and it would have been hard to talk because he would have had every story in the book to tell you. But to get back to the Notre Dame game, it just. I look at it now. During the game, it just was another play to me, But to look back on it now and to see what effect it had on my teammates and on fans, unbelievable.
What it did is that hit took the total wind out of their team. They weren't the same team.
Didn't do much for Berline either.
Well, I want to take a little credit for getting Cornelius ready for that game. Because he was a senior and I was a true freshman, so I was red-shirted. And I had to play the part of Tim Brown that week in practice. And, you know, Tim Brown won the Heisman Trophy that year, and they were known for running a lot of misdirection plays and reverses. And there was this one particular play where I had to run a reverse back to Cornelius' side. And Cornelius was known for tackling folks, especially if the quarterback wasn't looking with his arm like this, and he nicknamed it the sickle. And so I had to run a reverse back around to his side, and of course he stayed at home, and he ran right up to me, and he put his arm right at my throat like that, and he stopped. He looked at me, he said, "You're lucky I like you, freshman. I could have killed you." Not killed, but killed, K-I-L too. I could have killed you. And he talked about us being in awe of him. You know, I was just in awe to be on the field because I grew up like in Alabama, and it's like all of a sudden out here on the field with Cornelius Bennett and Wayne Davis. So I was in awe, and I just looked at him. I said, "Yes, sir, Mr. Bennett." And I went
By
back
the
to
way,
the
with
home.
all the guys who've gone legit sitting in here, nice businesses and what have you, how'd you end up being a referee?
Well, that was, I don't know if anybody knows his name, Dick Burleson. Sure. He's a head SEC official for 25 years. And come to find out, he is from Blumpsville, Alabama, and I'm from Oneonta. And it's the same county, and Blount County is a small place. All the little cities are small. And come to find out, he dated my chemistry teacher when he was in high school. So it was kind of a connection there, but I ran into him working out at Sportplex after I had been out of football for 2 or 3 years, and he approached me and he talked me into get into officiating, saying that it'd be a good way to stay involved with the game. So that's how I got started.
You like it?
I love it. I did high school ball in Birmingham for about 7 years, and I'll be calling with the Gulf South Conference this year, and I'm on the supplemental list with the SEC. And the SEC was my major goal when I first got started, but somebody said, "Well, would you want to do NFL?" And I was like, "Well, I don't see why not." So hopefully I'll be there one day.
He just likes being cussed at.
Yeah. You know, some people. All right, let me throw a name out. We'll get a few stories here. Willie Meadows.
I got one. Opening day, I come in the University of Alabama. They tell me I got to go over to the equipment room. See Willie. That's the first thing you had to do when you
equipment manager.
Yeah,
right?
equipment manager. And if to give you a visual picture of this, all the lights were off. It's a big cage, and in the very back on the wall there was a picture of Coach Bryant, like when in the 1960s or something. A big picture of Coach Bryant in the back, and it was dark. So this was the equipment room. I was looking in there, trying to, you know, and I put my hand up to the screen, and I heard somebody say, "The hell you want?" And I looked and I said, "Man, they done got Coach Bryant's picture wired up where, you know, where it's talking to you, you know?" And I said, "It's like the Wizard of Oz here." And I looked, I said, "What the hell you want?" And then this figure stood up and come toward me. And I'm saying to myself, here I am. I ain't been on campus very long at all. And here comes this guy and he says, "Who the hell are you?" I said, "I'm Tommy Wilcox." He says, "Where the hell are you from?" I said, "Louisiana." He says, "Oh, hell, ain't nothing good ever come out of Louisiana." Just about like that. And I said, "God, it's going to be a long stay here at the University of Alabama."
There, and we used to go in there and steal socks and jocks, and me and Dennis Holman and Ray Perkins and those guys, and he always had that sour look on his face, like he just smelt something. He'd look at you. I walked in there my freshman year and asked for a basket and everything, and he says, "What size pants you wear?" I said, "I don't know, 32. He said, "You look like you swapped legs with a blue jay and threw his ass in the boot."
Oh, God. But you never knew what you were going to get, did you, equipment-wise?
Oh, yeah. You know, if you got crossways any way, I mean, you get a jock strap, and it was like one my dad wore 30 years ago. You know? No elastic, no anything.
Safety pin holding it together in the wrong spot.
This is no joke. My freshman year, the pants that I got, and this is in '87, said Namath in the back. It was written in black marker, still there.
Well, my freshman year, during 2 days, it had rain, and so everything was wet, shoes and everything. So I throw everything in the bag, shoes and all. Come back for the afternoon practice. I get my same bag back from the morning practice. Everything's still wet, stinky. Damn freshman, don't put your shoes in the bag. Won't get washed again tomorrow if you do it again. And I had to wear that stinky stuff in the evening practice. He was just that conniving and whatever you want to call it. He'd sit there and smoke those Winston cigarettes. Sign them damn balls. You sign them balls, and after practice, you got your little orangeade juice, yeah, a little orange juice there. And then, Mr. Meadows, but he was tough on everybody. Just he didn't pick on anyone specifically. It was everybody. Everybody was treated the same by him. He didn't care who you were.
That's amazing. Happy Jack, you just been sitting there, haven't been saying too much. I bet you've got.
Well, he's talking about Coach Meadows.
Yeah.
He after he retired and he started kind of working at the Greyhound station, and he always had the little things to say. So he opened up the station each morning. So he went down one morning, and then there was a guy laid on the bench that had passed away. He walked right by. He said, "Well, if you got to go, go Greyhound." True statement.
We got to get them as a sponsor for this deal. That's perfect. What was it like, in all seriousness, hanging around, living in the dorm with these guys? I mean, there was, and I know there are stories you can tell, some you can't tell. You guys can breathe again, but
they can tell the stories.
Yeah, but what was it like in that atmosphere?
In the athletic dorm?
Yeah.
Well, of course, I go a long way. I start back even in like Freeman Hall, because see, I was there when Coach Bryant came. I went through the first spring training. You know, if you went through the Junction, the Junction guys go through it for 10 days. We go through it for 3 months. Billy and I, what we're talking about. So we've been through all the gut checks and things like that you've talked about. But then living in an athletic dorm, and Coach Bryant, he wanted no distractions. He wanted football to be the main thing. But then he also wanted people to have some enjoyment in life. And so, see, that's the dorm. I guess I can explain it this way after a long period of time, because I lived in a dorm over a period of 19 years with my wife and 2 sons. So I touch a lot of your lives. And Coach Bryant probably knew a lot more about what you were doing than you realized. I really could. I could go to Coach Bryant and say, "Coach, such and such, do you want me to handle it, or do you want to handle it?" But see, I sit in the rooms with most all discipline, or he would either call me and tell me where to take them or what to do. And see, Coach Bryant, the university and the football team was first. But then he always gave, no matter what you did, he always gave you an opportunity to correct that mistake. And if you would go in and do what he said, and the mistakes could be corrected, well then it was just totally forgotten. And so that's, I don't know how we, I don't know how you describe Coach Bryant and how he led all of us and touched all of our lives. Because if I was lucky to work with a lot in administration and things other than just stuff on the football field, but to see what he did for people all through walks of life that was not even related to anything that he should have even known about.
I think the scholarship fund is what it's still. I mean, that's not, a lot of people don't know about that. That's just incredible.
When people hear about that, they go, "My gosh, you talk about class. I've never heard of any coach who's ever put any money away to take care of the former players' children." My daughter is under the scholarship fund, so Oh, yeah. I looked at all my kids. I was up there with John Hand. We were looking at our kids, and he says, every one of y'all going to Alabama.
Scholarship.
That's true. I mean, what an incredible foresight for him to think so highly of us, and my gosh, he's still touching us.
Did he have a soft side to him? Did he let his guard down when he was amongst you guys, among the coaches, when the public and the players weren't watching? Was there a different man?
No. Coach Bryant would never get close to his players while they were playing for him. He would never get close to even the coaches, the assistant coaches that was working for him. It was always very standoffish. It had to be business with him. If you were going to see him or talk to him, it was always business. He's never sat down and had a conversation with you.
See, I have a little different approach than all of you guys that just played with him, because I actually grew up with him. And I used to go see him after football games when I was 10. And he put his arm around me. And then when I was 11 years old, I'll never forget, I was at Crystal when he did the book signing. Right. And I just went up with a bunch of my friends. And, you know, the man, how many people does he meet every day? He had no idea who I was, but he recognized me. He took me inside the Crystal, and I sat beside him the whole time while he signed autographs. Yeah. And I saw a different side to him, which made it kind of hard when I got here because it changed. Quickly.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
As long
I
as
saw a different part of him.
When you were working for him or you were under his supervision, then he was strictly business. But then as soon as you graduated or as soon as you left, as soon as people all over this whole world, then he became your best friend. Mm-hmm. Or he walked down the streets for children, women, things of that nature. But he wouldn't let you get close to him if you were working for him.
His soft side was his wife. Mm-hmm. She would go on the road trips with us a few times, ride the plane, and she was really a sweet lady. And I remember, and very humble, I remember we had traveling uniforms. We were going out to play Southern Cal my junior year, and they had given us these polyester pants with the red jacket, yeah, the gray pants. And I sat down, the first time I sat down, those pants went from zipper to belt loop. And but Miss Bryant sat up in front of the plane and by hand sewed those pants up. And I remember her doing that for me, and that was Coach Bryant's soft side.
Don, you wanted to add something there?
When did Coach Bear Bryant die? 1983.
January 83.
No,
83. It was after the Illinois game. Yeah.
Okay.
Spring of 83.
That year, I think we had a strike, right, at the Dolphins, and I had some time off, so I came to a practice here at the University of Alabama. Come out to practice, and Coach Bryant saw me. He said, "Don, come on up." I said, "You want me to come up there in the tower?" "Yeah, come on up." So I went up in the tower. We talked to him, and he said, "Mac, I want you to come to my house tonight for dinner." I said, "You want me to come to your house tonight for dinner?" "Yeah, I want you to come to my house for dinner. My security guard, what's his name?" Billy will pick you up and bring you to the house for dinner. I said, "Okay, I'll be there." So he took me to his house for dinner, and we sat around and we ate dinner. After that, the strangest thing happened. He took all of his, he showed me all his house, and he showed me all his drawers that he closed, and he showed me all his drawers and all of that. And that was in 1982. And that year we got in the Super Bowl, and he passed. He died. And it was just so strange that he did that for me at that particular time. I don't know why he did that, but he did that for me. Took him to his house and showed me all
Coach said you became best friends when you came back.
I got a tower story. Can I
Sure,
tell you?
sure.
I think it was after my rookie year. I was watching spring practice, and it kind of goes along with what Coach Rutledge was talking about. And Coach Bryant saw me down there on the practice field, and he says, "Baumhauer, come on up." And I don't know what you were thinking, but I didn't know quite what to do there. You know, going up in the tower was a big deal. And I went up in the tower, and somebody was talking about Coach Bryant falling asleep earlier. Was it you, John, talking about Coach Bryant falling asleep up there? He didn't fall asleep, but I don't know how y'all were as players, but I thought he saw everything. You know, everybody thought he saw everything. And Coach Bryant started talking to me. He started asking me all these questions. How's your mom and dad? Are they still in this business? Are they still doing this? Are they still doing that? And I was just amazed at what he knew about things that I had no idea he knew about. And he asked me a question. He said, "You still dating that cheerleader?" And I said, "Yeah, Coach. Yeah, we're still seeing each other. She comes down and sees me in Miami once in a while. And she's living up in Memphis now." And before I could finish, she said, "I know where the hell she's living. Who the hell you think helped her get that job up there?" and she went to work for Pepsi up there in Memphis. But he knew all about who I was dating, just like he did Kenny's little girlfriend down there in Mobile. He knew about my parents. He knew about so much that I had no idea he knew about. And that just impressed me a lot, because you didn't see that as a player. You didn't know how closely he followed you. And then I saw the other side that you're talking about, Don. He really, really cared about us, and he followed us. And I'm sure some of y'all had the same experiences as I did as players, or when you leave, he kept up with you. And you'd get little notes from him once in a while, and even phone calls. And I mean, that's really, really special. I mean, he really cared. And I think Coach Bryant just had that knack for knowing, first of all, he knew all about us. He knew what made us tick. And then I think that gave him the ability to know whether we needed the kick in the butt or the pat on the back, the hug, or the whatever it was. But that tower story, I have, a lot of us, we got some other stories. But that tower story, that tower experience for me never left me. And
I think keeping in touch with the players as soon as you leave. I remember going to the Jets in '79, and before the opening game, you always got a telegram. I got a telegram from Coach Bryant. You know, best of luck, stay healthy, show your class, and it was that simple. And it came from '79 until he passed away, to start the season off.
Snake, with all the stories, you and Joe Namath, I mean, heck, those stories were legendary. What truly was your relationship with Coach Bryant, you and Joe, with all that went on? What was it like?
You know, like somebody said earlier, you know, he wouldn't, I think Coach Rutledge says, he wouldn't let you get close to him. You didn't feel close to him physically, but there was something emotionally about that you felt close to him because you wanted to please him. Like I said, you'd do anything to make him slap you on the butt and say, way to go, or just recognize you, or just say your name in front of the team. You'd do anything for that, but you didn't feel physically close to him, but you knew that his door was always open, but he wouldn't let you get real close to him. I didn't feel real, close to him in that way, but.
How about the times when discipline was necessary?
That was daily.
Yeah. All right. Rephrasing that, then on a daily basis, what was he like? Was he disappointed in you? Did he understand that you were 18, 19, 20? What was?
I think you felt a sense of disappointment. You know that he preached the team and the oneness and that type of attitude so much that when you did get out of favor or you did need the discipline, as a bunch of us did, he made you feel like that you were not letting down him, that you were letting down the people around you, the team around you, and the school and the colors and the tradition and all of that thing. So it really put a real guilt trip on you that, not only are you letting down a lot of people close to you, the team and the school and your parents and things like that, but you're also throwing away a great opportunity. I look back on that, without that discipline, I'd be, selling cars or a bartender or whatever, but because he saw something good, whatever that may be, because he sees you might be worth saving, you might be worth keeping, then he kicks you in the ass and grabs you back of the head and points you in the right direction and gives you another chance and makes you take advantage of that great opportunity that you have.
Before we wrap this segment up here in the next moment or so, what is truly the record now for driving from Tuscaloosa to Columbus and back?
It depends on the car. I went to Wood Chevrolet. I was a hot rod player, I guess, or thought I was, and I went to Wood Chevrolet in Birmingham right before my senior year, and I went up there to the guys at Wood Chevrolet, and I said, I'm probably going to get drafted, and I want a brand new Corvette, but I'm not going to get drafted until next year. So can I go ahead and get the car now and pay you when I get the money next year? And the Wood people up there are just great Alabama fans, and so they sold me a brand new 1967 Corvette, beautiful car, a black one with a white stripe down the middle of it. And I bought it up in Birmingham, and I drove it back to Tuscaloosa, 60 miles, 70 miles, and I was going to go see my girlfriend in Mobile, the one that I'd been going. That's why it depends on the car how quick you can get back and forth. And so I was going to go see her, and I'm going down University Avenue. I cruised to Sorority Row about 12 times. Just cruising, styling down through there with the radio up in the top down and all that. And so I want to run to Mobile and see this girl, and I'm got the odometer under there where you can set the miles. And so I'm going like this, setting the miles, and the car stops in front of me at the light, and it's boom. And push the headlights. Corvettes are fiberglass. It pushed the headlights back up into the grill. And then, and so I called the guy the freshman, we all had a freshman, a guy that we wanted to take care of, a guy that we liked, and mine was a kid named Glenn Jones from Scottsboro, and I called Glenn. I said, Glenn, bring me my car and call a wrecker. And he called a wrecker and brought me my car. I went to Mobile and did my thing down there, and then came back.
Ken, I used to be a compliance officer, and we just gonna forget about this part about them giving you this car early.
You knew it had to come. The stories about the dorm and the curfews. More recruitment stories, plus memories of great games won and a couple lost. Take a quick break, and the fourth quarter will begin when you get back.